Hi, everybody. Are you searching for a focal image, but you can't draw? I'm going to show you a workaround that's guaranteed to impress. Hi, I'm Karen Burchill, Creative Katie. Welcome to my channel. Here's my secret, napkins. Napkins come in an array of patterns and themes, and they have tons of absolutely wonderful focal images. All you need is a few tricks and you can create on your art journal or mixed media pieces with them just like I am. So I took off the two excess layers using a piece of tape, and now I'm going to water cut the images or the elements from the napkin that I want. I don't want to put the whole napkin on. So I am just going to cut around the turtle, cut around the seaweed, and once I do this, I can also start playing with the composition. And that's what you see me doing here, or little hints of it. I have my 7x10 art journal page there, and I also have my 9x12. I'm not exactly sure which I'm going to do and how many sea turtles I'm going to need. And so I'm trying it out. Now, some napkins have signatures on them or some of the branding, and you're going to want to cut that out. Now, if you forget, and I have, you can always paint over that and hide it, but it's easier just to cut it out at this stage of the game. So I have all the elements cut out, and then I grab stencils that have the same feel. I have all these sea stencils, sea creatures, Gulf Coast flora, and creatures from the Crafters Workshop. And I will link to the one I used and some of the other ones that if you're looking to build your stash. Just a reminder, I'll be doing a step-by-step recap at the end of the video with my prompt and process cards. Now that I have an idea of what I think I want to do for the composition, I'm taking a picture because I find, I do a lot of tweaking and I want to remember at the end. Now my page is gessoed, and what I'm doing here is I am brushing regular gesso through the stencil. Now, if you've watched my channel, you've seen me put thick gesso through the stencil. And I thought, I want to see how this works, if it gives me texture. And I picked this moving vines, stencil, and I'm brushing it against there and adding gesso. I'm not too worried if it seeps under, but I'm thinking that's going to kind of look like seaweed or the motion under the water. And that's why I picked it. So I'm going to use light blue permanent, yellow green. That's what you see going on there. I've got a turquoise and bright aqua. I want to keep the background fairly light, so I'm also blending in some white gesso onto the background. I want the background to be lighter than the focal images, but I am basically using the same colors and the sea colors. These are colors that are all next to each other on a color wheel, and when they blend, they're going to make beautiful colors together. This is a technique I call block and blend because I'm blending on the page. And the reason it blends so easily is because I have gessoed the page. Now, if you look close, you can see those moving vines that I gessoed on there. The texture is there. So I definitely will be playing with regular gesso through a stencil and other ones. Now I'm testing out the sea turtles on the background and I'm loving how that's looking. I grabbed this chicken wire reverse stencil and I am using my Liquitex acrylic inks that I've mixed with water. I have a video showing how I did that and I love the effect. In fact, but I didn't spray enough here, so I'm going to solve that problem a little bit later. But it kind of looks like the markings on the sea turtle, which is why I chose that stencil. Now, you don't need all purchased products. You can use DIY mark makers, and here I'm just using bubble wrap. And I'm putting white because I want to lighten the background again. I'm very aware that I want the background to be lighter. And I'm just using a makeup sponge to put white acrylic paint on the bubble wrap, and then I'm pressing down. This is kind of giving that bubbly effect that goes with my ocean theme. It's very organic, very imprecise. Now I grabbed this stencil. This is called Winged Mosaic, and I love dragonflies. But I love this swirl motif, and I've used this a lot on various pages. I want this swirl to resemble like the water, the movement of the water. And again, I'm using white because I want to brighten and lighten this background. And I'm turning the stencil a little bit, running it off the page. That makes it look better when you do all those things. So again, putting my sea turtles back on. Liking the look of where this is going. Now I want to add more texture to the page. So I grabbed the 12-inch stencils. This one's called Seahorse, and TCW's Stencil Butter. I have two colors here, lime green and ocean blue. And one of my favorite ways of using these stencil butters is to put them on my finger and rub them through the stencil. And I'm mixing the colors as I do that. It's very imprecise. Some of it seeps under. I'm not worried. It still looks really great. Now, stencil butters are similar to modeling paste, but a little thinner. And they have this amazing, almost neon color, and they shine. So they give you texture and shine. They do take a little bit of time to dry, so I'm going to dry it and come back. Now I've picked from the Gulf Coast Flora stencil, another bottom of the sea plant or coral, I'm not sure what that is. And I'm using chartreuse with the lime green. And again, mixing it with my finger. Look at that shine. Now I've used another one. And this time I'm using the blue and the green, but I'm trying to put maybe a little bit more blue. So I put 3 along the bottom to build up my scene. So don't think it all needs to come from the napkin or the printable. You can mix and match things that have a similar feel. If you have stamps that go with the sea theme, you can use those as well. Now, the background seemed a little too light for me, so I grabbed this Caramel texture plate, I think it's called. I'm not sure. I'll list it. And I'm rubbing acrylic paint a little bit darker. I did not want to go black because I thought that was too dark. So this is green blue from Amsterdam, I believe. And it has that hexagon shape to it that resembles the markings on the turtle and also the one that we have on the chicken wire reverse stencil. Now, before I glue anything down, I'm going to try to figure out what sentiment that I want. So I went to my Ocean Commotion sentiment pack and I picked out 2. I like when they are bold and they stand out. Now, the way that I give them in the pack, you can resize them. You can make them larger. You can make them smaller. You can also cut them apart as you see me doing here and manipulate the words to fit your composition. Usually around the script, I do what I call bubble cutting, where I just leave a little bit of white around it. And then I left the box and then the bubble cutting. And so this time I changed, instead of going up and down, I went side to side with my sentiment. Now, before I glue down the sea turtles, I want to knock back some of the darkness that's underneath. That's because I don't want that to show through the napkin. And I find that this is one of the easiest, best ways to do that. I just take it on some white gesso on a makeup sponge and very lightly, slowly knock back that color, block it back. I'm not too worried about going right to the ends of the focal image, the napkin, mainly just the middle parts. But because you're using a makeup sponge and it's soft, it really is easy to paint over, add a little bit more color should you go too far. I'm using fluid matte medium from Liquitex to glue this down. I'm using a lot, and I find that if you have lots on the brush, you have less chance of ripping the napkin. The napkins get really, really fragile once they're wet. And then I'm gluing down my sentiment as well. Now I have the napkin pieces, the seaweed, and I'm just layering that on top of the stenciling that I did. Now, alternatively, I could have glued these down and did the stenciling on top, which with the shimmer might have been okay, or done half and half. There is no right or wrong. But I like how this really gives that layered look to this composition. Lately, I've been doing several art journal pages all on the theme of the ocean, and I tend to work that way because I have the sentiment pack out and I have focal images that go together and I have the colors out and some of the stencils that are, to me, ocean. And so it's just easier to stay in a theme for a while and then put everything away and then start something different. And often when I do one see one, I get other ideas in a similar vein. And so it's nice to test those out. Here I'm just adding more of that chicken wire reverse stencil. I do take some white and knock back some of it. I do give it a wash of white. Now I'm edging the page with black acrylic paint using the floating acrylic shading technique here. Please check your notification setting on YouTube. Go to the bell, click on the bell, and click it off to be notified, and then click it back on. Every once in a while, it seems that it stops notifying people, even if you've asked for that. And if you're not, I recommend that you do set on the notifications. It means you get an email or some kind of notification of when I post a video. Sometimes that will include a thumbnail so you can see it and say, hey, yeah, I'd like to see that. Oh, and then But do know that typically I release one video every second day. Here I am using a wash of acrylic colors just to brighten and shade the sea turtle, just to bring out the colors. I shaded that sea turtle around the outside edge, and now I'm just darkening some of the dark areas. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to highlight with white acrylic paint some of the white areas. In the past, I've done where I've painted over it with gesso and I actually come back and I do the painterly effect. Here I'm doing more of a wash, just adding color. Oh, I love that caramel stamp behind that turtle. There's not much of it showing, but it just adds to the page. Every little detail always does. Right now, I apologize, I'm off camera. I am painting, adding a little bit, doing a wash on top of the napkin seaweed that I put. Again, to bring out the colors a little bit, as it just seemed they were fairly lost, especially since they were layered against the stencil butter. There you go. And they're darker in color, so they tie in with the sea turtles. There I'm just adding a little bit of white to knock back parts of that honey or parts of that chicken wire reversed stencil. I heat the tape so I remove it with so it doesn't pull off any tape paper. Love, 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 loving the look. The shimmer at the bottom just adds the element. Every layer that I've put on there, I can see, including those moving vines. I didn't bring out the texture, but it's there. So I stenciled with regular gesso this time. I used a brush and I brushed it through that moving vines stencil, and I will be doing that again. I applied color using the block and blend technique, using and reminding myself that I wanted to keep the background light. I sprayed through a stencil with acrylic ink spray that I made. I did some stenciling and stamping to add pattern and interest to the background. And I used a DIY mark maker, the bubble wrap. I put modeling paste, or this time stencil butters, through the stencil along the bottom, keeping in with the sea theme. And I added the napkin for the focal image. I adjusted the color of the napkin with a wash of color on the sea turtles and the seaweed. I added a sentiment, I shaded the make focal image, and I edged the page. I am so happy with how this turned out. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Give me a thumbs up. Follow me on Instagram at Creative Katie. Close-ups are coming. Until next time, go get creative.